So why don't we start off with how good the bomb scenarios were in this movie?
I, for one, really enjoyed the bomb scenarios. They were all very unique. They all had their own little twist,
Yeah.
and that's the thing I liked probably the most about this movie.
Yeah, they all had very unique things, and another thing was the IED. The props for the IEDs were really, really accurate to what they actually looked like. They were very loosely put together and not
Yeah.
very they were very.
It looked as if it was made in a country where they wouldn't have the supplies to
Yeah.
create proper bombs.
I guess you could say they were improvised explosive devices, IEDs.
Okay, so overall, yeah, the bomb scenarios were very, very good, and there was also a couple other scenarios, like the one where they get pinned down in the desert.
Yes, yeah, it was
Ooh,
very
yes.
accurate. They weren't just one person sniping all of the other people. It was highly just realistic to the way they do it in real life, where it's a team of guys that all have to work together instead of one person.
You could really tell that they did their research before making this movie. You could tell that they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, and on top of that, the costumes, from what I've seen, like the news and stuff, were very, very accurate to what actual military costumes look like.
Oh yeah, yeah. it
Along
was-
with were they terrorists?
I guess
I would call them terrorists.
opposing forces.
Yeah, the opposing force costumes were like what you would expect.
Yeah.
And not even just the costumes, the guns as well. All the props were
Yeah.
very accurate to current military hardware that would have been in existence at the time of the movie.
Yeah, and they still kind of apply to today because I don't know how much they advanced.
Also, the sets were second to none in realism.
Yeah.
They the army base, the city in which they would defuse the bombs and stuff, and they would include military vehicles that were, I'm pretty sure they were real military vehicles, and just the procedures, they have to go through checkpoints and they'd have to they would talk in the proper military lingo, and it was just very, very realistic.
Yeah, and also I actually thought they filmed this in Afghanistan or Iraq, some sort of Middle Eastern country, but did they actually film it there? Didn't they film it in Jersey or something?
They filmed it in Jordan, which is in the Middle East.
Oh.
Yeah.
Still, looked exactly like Iraq, and that's pretty amazing
Yeah.
considering.
Also, one thing that I want to talk about is how effectively the music was used in one of the first scenes with the new guy, I can't remember his
Bomb
name.
diffuser.
Yeah, the new bomb diffuser, and when he leads the line and there's multiple bombs surrounding him, the music
yeah.
the music and the camera was used really, really well to create anxiety.
Oh yeah, it was so suspenseful. Just he's suddenly surrounded by bombs, and it's just the music ramped up so that it made that situation just seem so intense.
And another thing I liked about the music was that in the times that there was no music, it was very fitting. They didn't constantly use music. There were times when they left it silent so that you could really feel the stress of the characters in the scene.
And one thing that I thought was used really effectively was the shaky camera. So in a lot of movies, they use this really, really improperly because they'll use it randomly or they'll try and use it to create anxiety, but it'll just make you feel really flustered. But in this movie, seeing as it was a bunch of people basically ready to die, it made a really good feeling for the movie.
See, I would disagree with that because I don't think shaky cam should ever be used. I think it always just looks weird. It makes it hard to understand what's going on in the scene. It makes it hard to follow the action. I don't think I've ever seen shaky cam used effectively, and I'm tired of seeing it in movies.
I have to agree with Joseph in that the shaky cam was quite well used. I agree with him in that in other movies it's overdone and too shaky, you just can't understand what's happening. Whereas in this, it was a lot of the shaky cam was done from either over the shoulder or in first person to really show from their perspective and show how crazy the situation was that they were in.
Yeah. And, another thing that was used really, really well was the first-person shots.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the helmet shots for the bomb squad, for the bomb defusal squad,
Yeah.
was really, really well used because it creates this perspective of the person, and then it creates it kind of makes you.
You really feel
Feel-
like you're in that stressful situation.
And
Yeah.
another thing that helped with that was the breathing sound effects that were going on whenever you were inside the helmet. You could hear the breathing, and that was the only thing you could hear, which made you really feel like you were inside the suit, defusing the bombs yourself.
Yeah, and that created a great feeling of anxiety and kind of made you feel really nervous almost for the person.
Yeah.
And
Anyways, moving along. I, for one, thought the lighting in the outdoor scenes really made you feel like you were there, like they filmed it. You felt like you were there when you were defusing a bomb. You felt like it was real life happening right in front of you. It was filmed. It looked so natural. It looked almost entirely lifelike. It felt like it was a documentary.
Yeah, the lighting was absolutely amazing in this film. It wasn't overused. I don't think it was really used to convey any moods other than like the nighttime scenes.
Yeah.
If there were any. But
one thing that I really liked about the lighting was like when they would be out in the desert, it would just be the lighting just made it seem like they were just baking under the hot sun. Like it was just so hot and it was unbearable. And like in the night scenes, they really used lighting to portray like a feeling of being lost and not knowing what was going on.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed in the desert scene, like especially the sniper scene, was that they actually used heat shimmers in the distance, which a lot of films or any sort of media don't actually use that much.
Yeah, they overlook it.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really liked about the desert scene was some of the makeup they used on the characters. You could see the sand that was plastered over their faces whenever the wind would blow. And you could really tell that they'd been sitting out there for a long time. You could tell that they really put their heart and soul into making this look as real as possible.
And then one thing I really liked, once again, about that desert scene, the sniper scene, is that they really made the characters kind of like feel alive in that scene, because the guy who was watching over them, not the leader of the squad, but the other guy, after that guy got shot in the neck, he was like really like out of it after that, and he needed the guy to like guide him through like cleaning the blood off the bullet so it wouldn't jam. So that was it. Lots of movies like overlook the fact of like
panic
and people like dying around you and like
emotional scarring.
Yeah.
One thing that I just found was great throughout the movie was the pace. It wasn't some super fast-paced action movie. It was realistic in that they would spend hours and days at base without any action, and then for 20 minutes, it might be the most intense 20 minutes of anybody's lives. It was really good. And also with the sniper scene, it was like, it wasn't just 2 minutes of quick action and a firefight was over. They had to wait out in the hot sun and pay attention for hours to make sure that they weren't being flanked or like surrounded. They had to be on edge for hours, and it really portrayed that well.
Yeah, the pacing was really nice because you never really felt bored by the movie. There was never a moment while I was watching the film that I felt like I wish I'd rather be doing something else. I was always intrigued by what was going on the screen, and I was always excited to see what happened next.
Yeah, the day counter really made you feel like they would wait out there and you wouldn't miss a moment. Like, it made you feel like you weren't missing anything, and that was used really well. Mm-hmm. And another thing about that was the story was kind of jumbled, but I think it wouldn't be the same without the jumbled story. I think it actually made it work really well. Yeah. Because, like, they would jump between days, so that it would kind of give a time frame and show that nothing would happen between those days, and then it was just, I don't know, it just looked really nice and worked really well.
Well, as well with the pace, it was, it wasn't constantly every 20 minutes they were getting into a new firefight. It would really show that the excitement and the pacing was random, which is very realistic. Like in real life, you're not gonna have action every 20 minutes, like set in like pretty much like a timeline every 20 minutes. It's gonna happen. No, it's gonna be like maybe 6 days from now or maybe a month from now you're gonna have a tense situation. And it was really well done and how like random it was.
Yeah, with the jumbled plot, I feel like they went away from just the overarching story and decided to just show the journey of a group of soldiers in the war, which is really what you'd get in real life. You wouldn't get some long time span of what happened from here to here. You're just sitting in the daily lives of these soldiers and finding out what they have to deal with when they're at war.
And the one thing that I noticed was the characters had a lot of depth, and they felt really real, and lots of them were really relatable. So, like, once again, the guy who kind of went into shock after that guy got shot in the neck, he was really relatable because I don't think he reacted how, like, I think a lot of people would react if people were dying around him. And a lot of the other characters were just really well depth, like the scene where he, the new, I can't remember their name.
The new bomb diffuser.
Yeah, the new bomb diffuser guy. The scene where he like buys the DVD from the kid and he plays like soccer with him and stuff.
Yeah.
That was like it gave his character depth, and it showed that he had compassion rather than just being a normal like military like grunt.
Yeah, just expanding on that, I really felt like Jeremy Renner's character. Every single character, nobody was perfect. They all had their flaws. Like Jeremy Renner's character, He was amazing at defusing bombs,
But he couldn't follow orders.
Yeah, he was a bad listener. He wouldn't
Reckless.
Yeah, he would goof around sometimes when it wasn't necessary, and he would put other people in danger, not knowing it. And so you could really tell that each character had a lot of real depth, and nobody was
Perfect
a hero.
or a terrible person.
And to add on to that, the characters wouldn't have been that well developed if the acting wasn't amazing in this movie.
Yes.
The acting was superb. Like, it was just great.
Yeah, because it borderlined being like super emotional, which would be too emotional for like a war movie. But they also showed that they really had to like toughen up and show no emotion because they are soldiers. It showed them trying to remain calm and composed, even though underneath you could see that they were
Falling apart.
They were falling apart. Yeah.
And something kind of cool that I found was that in the beginning scene where they take that quote, I can't remember who the quote's by, but at the end it says "war is a drug." And one thing that I noticed is like that the new bomb disposal guy, he was like, that was kind of like, I think that quote was kind of like referencing to him because he had done so many bomb defusals and he was so reckless and he was almost like playing when he was doing them.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like that quote "war is a drug" kind of like
applied to him very well.
Yeah.
So overall, this movie was done very, very well, and I can definitely see why it got the
high ratings. That
and the movie of the year, whatever, the Oscar.
Yeah, it got nominated.
Yeah,
and
it won.
won.
Yeah, over like a ton of amazing films. Like,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I think overall I enjoyed it at some parts. Some parts, I don't know, they were good. It had its good qualities, it had its bad qualities, but in the end, I really liked it. I thought it was really well done, very accurate, great acting. I thought it was a great movie.
And great realism too.
Yeah.
Like, lots of war movies will overplay things. Like, they will like, I don't know, the uniforms will be really, really inaccurate, and the guns will be really, really inaccurate.
Yeah, they'll fire hundreds
Yeah.
of bullets and miss their target.
Something that I found kind of like relating to that actually, kind of a small flaw with the movie was that that scene where they see the guy on top of the building, and he tries, I can't remember what he tries to do, but when he's running back inside, all the soldiers like shot like tons of shots, even when he wasn't there and he was inside the building, and they're all missing
soldiers
tons
are
of shots.
disciplined with their shots.
Yeah.
That was a little lapse.
Yeah, that was a little weird. Like,
Yeah.
they usually conserve their ammo pretty well, and like they won't like waste that many shots and miss their target every single time. So yeah, excluding that, I think this movie was amazing and really well done. So, Wilson?
I think this movie was in as a whole a really great movie. There were certain lapses where I think maybe the plot could have been a little bit more interesting. But other than that, it was just it was great. It was a really great movie.
So I think we can all agree we give this movie 3 peas in a pod out of 3.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and that was our review of the movie The Hurt Locker.
Have a good night, everybody.